1% to 2%. But the number are so high that it actually gives, crores of people are getting this disease and crores have died. Okay, highly infectious, though mortality is comparatively low, but the death is high because the number of patients which are high are very, very high. Of course, this is all of us know that transmission is by the aerosols or droplets. Okay, aerosols are small particle and droplets are large particle. Now this actually again and again we should tell ourselves and everyone, because yet today if you want to save yourself from the coronavirus disease, vaccine has come, but we do not know efficacy 100%, only 6 months or 1 year will tell us. So it's very important that masking and physical distance should not be forgotten, at least for next 1 year, till we have herd immunity, where most of the people in the country are actually immune to this disease. And actually today also when I go for a round, I see many of my residents, okay, they are actually not wearing masks, or actually they are having and they are not actually covering their face with the masking. Okay, it is important whether you are young or old, because actually it is known that there are people who have high complication rate, but even young people are also in problem. And even suppose you have suffered from it, okay, second infection has not occurred, we may never know. So whether you have disease or not disease, okay, wherever you are, once you are outside your home, masking is very important. If possible, physical distancing is very, very important. And this actually, Fauci, one of the most respected person from the CDC America, he has been telling, that with vaccine or without vaccine, till herd immunity is there, this should not be stopped. Actually, I see in hospital, the relatives are never told that, you should wear mask, because as soon as you go near them, all of them just pull down the mask because they think that, it's better to talk with the doctor without mask. So it's very important to insist on this, though this is a repetition which was done by my colleague many times. Okay. Now, what is another challenge of this coronavirus? That the most of the disease is spread by the asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic people. Now, usually influenza, okay, is actually spread when the persons are getting symptoms, when the virus load is very, very high. Here, majority people can be asymptomatic, which will be coming in the next few slides, and they get the disease. They don't have symptom or minor symptom which they ignore, okay, and they are the one who are spreading it. And same thing, before 3 days of getting the symptom, they have a large viral load in their respiratory secretion, and they can spread the disease very well, to everyone. And this reason, these are the people, they are called super spreaders. Okay, because they don't have symptom, they don't care, and actually people who are actually mixing them, meeting them without mask or physical distancing, they can get the disease. So it's very important to know that in influenza, the virus spread is maximum when there are maximum symptoms, and when the symptom comes down, thing goes away. But here it is asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic patient also actually spread disease. Actually 40 to 50% of the cases, okay, may be attributable to the transmission from the asymptomatic pre-symptomatic patient. So patient is not coughing, patient not having fever, doesn't mean he's not having the disease and is not going to spread disease to any one of us. Now this is a very good slide which I got. I am sure someone must have showed you. This SARS virus has come from the bat, okay, and it has come from the horseshoe bat. Actually, see the horseshoe shape here which this bat is having, okay. So bat actually is having the SARS virus, and there are multiple type of SARS virus which actually they have in their body. They pass this virus to the animal. The coronavirus 1, that is 2000 in China, was actually found to be actually infecting the civet cat. It was a cat which was infected, and from there it jumped to the human being. Okay, so it was bad, from there to the animal, and then it comes to the human being. But novel, that is COVID-19, yet we are not sure which was the intermittent host, which animal form it has come. But it has definitely jumped from some animal to the human being. Okay, once the coronavirus comes to the human being from the droplet or aerosol infection, what actually does? It actually spreads through the aerosol or the droplets. This is the coronavirus. Actually, a person who inhales this, okay, it actually settles down in this respiratory tract, okay, and there are S2 receptors which are there, okay. We are the one which are receiving this coronavirus on the mucosa, and then from there it enters the cell and the disease starts. Okay, so it's a bat, intermittent animal, human being, and from human to human through the aerosol and droplet, and there is a mucosa which is an S2 receptor and which it enters. Okay, someone is talking. Just if you can stop that. Yeah. Okay. Uh, are you clear about this slide, Dr. Ayub?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good. Now this is another very good slide which I got from MEGM. So what is the incubation period? You know, this is clinical manifestation. Okay, and what are the incubation period? Incubation period is usually 1 to 5 days. Okay, most of the people will have manifestation within 5 days, but up to 11 to 14 days it can remain. Okay, so this is a pre-symptomatic. Okay, where actually patient may not have symptom, but he is having large amount of virus in his respiratory secretion, and he can spread the disease. Once the symptom starts, okay, once the symptoms start, he can have mild symptom, which actually all of us know: fever, cough, fatigue, anorexia, myalgia, and diarrhea. Okay, right? And many patients with this mild symptom will recover without any problem. But person who does not recover with this symptom in 5 to 7 days, okay, then they get another symptom which can start here, dyspnea, like that second case which I discussed, actually worsening dyspnea in the 6th and 7th and 8 days, but it can start on the 4th day, it can start on 5th day, it can start usually after 3 or 4 days. Then the dyspnea starts in this patient. Okay, so 40% of the people who are in symptoms, okay, will develop a dyspnea, and out of that, some of them will develop a very bad dyspnea and will be labeled as severe illness, and ultimately some of them will become critical illness and have a high morbidity and mortality. So we have incubation period, which is infective. Okay, we are in pre-symptomatic period, which are actually infective. Okay, we are having patient who are having the symptom mild, they are infective. Okay, usually after 7 and 8 days, if suppose disease persists, they can get worsening of the disease, okay, and can get severe disease or critical illness, which is having high morbidity and high mortality. Okay, so 81% of the patient have mild to moderate disease. Okay, what is mild moderate mild disease? 40% of cases who have mild disease, there is no pneumonia. I mean, actually there is only upper respiratory tract is involved. Lung parenchyma is not involved. Another 40% are moderate, where actually there is a minimum involvement of the lung, which is there, but minimal involvement is there. Okay, but this moderate disease, okay, can progress into the worst disease or severe disease or critical disease. Okay, so this actually you have to remember: 40% mild, no lung involvement, moderate, minimum lung involvement, severe and critical. Definitely, bad lung involvement is there. Okay. Now, those patients who are having severe disease, 40% are there in them. How they are identified? They have dyspnea, where the respiratory rate is almost 30 or more. Okay, you can visually see that he is actually exerting like anything to take a proper breath. His oxygen saturation is below 94, about 93% or less. Okay, and his PO2 FiO2 ratio is less than 300. And if you see his chest X-ray or actually ideally CT, the lung is involved more than 50%. Now these are the people who are actually severe and they have a high risk of getting complication and the death. While critical is worse than that, it is worse than your severe disease. 5% patient become critical. Now what is the characteristic? All the characteristics of severe disease is there, but now there is a respiratory failure. Now they will require probably ventilator. They will be in the shock, hypotension, and they have multi-organ failure. So what is mild disease, what is moderate disease, what is severe disease, and what is critical disease? This is described by the clinical picture and investigations. Okay, so these patients who are actually critical, they meet all the criteria of ARDS. Now we are hearing about ARDS. I'm not sure most of the people are knowing what is ARDS. Repeat it. It is defined as acute onset of bilateral pulmonary infiltrate. Remember, it is bilateral, not unilateral. Usually bilateral pulmonary infiltrate are there. There is a severe hypoxemia, definitely less than 93, but it can go very, very low also. There is lung edema, which is not explained fully on cardiac failure. Cardiac failure and fluid overload can also look like, in X-ray and behave like, your ARDS. But here, there is no evidence of cardiac failure, or the cardiac failure is not that bad. Okay, and you are not given too much fluid to the patient. Otherwise, other differential diagnosis of ARD is actually cardiac failure, fluid overload. If these two are not there, it cannot explain having bilateral pulmonary infiltrate, which has actually started acutely. There is severe hypoxemia. Okay, this is the patient will be labeled ARDS. ARDS by itself is a very major topic, and I'm sure intensivists will be able to explain to you better than this. It's not only coronavirus. There are multiple conditions can lead to ARDS, and we should know about it. Especially the intensivists are actually expert in that karke. The mortality in critically ill patient is as high as 49 to 50%. So what are the risk factors for the complicated COVID? Older age, COPD, cardiovascular diseases, type 2 diabetes, obesity, sickle cell disease, chronic kidney disease, immunocompromised state, solid organ transplantation, cancer. This all of us are knowing. There are a few more things which are actually mentioned in various papers. But at least why this is important? If these are the people who are having moderate disease, they require intensive monitoring either at home or actually in hospital or actually in a isolation ward or emergency ward. This actually be coming in the how to manage these cases karke. Now for the diagnosis of your coronavirus or COVID-19, you have 3 tests which are available. Okay, the one which is most reliable, okay, is actually your. There are 3 tests. One actually is the nucleic acid RNA detection test, NAT that is called, nucleic acid amplifying test. Second is actually viral antigen test, and third actually detection of the antibodies to the virus. So what are the values of this test? Where you should use this test will be coming in the next slide. RT-PCR actually is actually the gold standard test for detecting your COVID-19. Okay, these are actually NAT test, right? The specificity is 100%. If patient is having COVID, his RT-PCR should come positive. Can we get false negative with it? Yeah, it can be false negative if your procedure or technology, if you have not taken proper the swab, or if you have not actually transferred it properly as it should be transferred in proper way. Okay, or third, actually if you have taken the first or second test, it can come negative also. So if you are suspecting strongly that it is COVID-19 and your test has come negative, on the third day you should repeat it and see whether it is there or not karke. Maybe it was technical fault, okay, or actually it was too early to do it karke. But otherwise, this is the gold standard test and it's the most important diagnostic test. What is the problem? It takes about 24 hours. Okay, abhi now 12 hours ho gaya, but it is actually 8 to 10 hours it goes before you get the result. But and again, of course, it is costly test is there karke. But this is actually gold standard test, has to be done in the patient when you suspect it karke. Then came recently rapid antigen testing. Here actually you test the antigen. Here you are testing nucleic acid. Okay, right? Here you are testing antigen. When you are testing antigen in the patient, okay, remember that it is not as sensitive as this. Okay, 30% of the people will have this positive test, but the specificity is very good. If it is rapid antigen test is positive, this patient is having most likely your coronavirus, right? Once you get positive, you should immediately isolate him and treat him as a COVID-19. But you confirm the diagnosis with your RT-PCR. It's very important. Specificity is not good. If it is negative, it does not rule out that there is no COVID. So if you are suspecting, again you have to do RT-PCR should be done. You should do it if it is negative also, if you are suspecting clinically. What is the advantage? This is actually test which gives result within 15 minutes. Within 15 minutes. Okay. So most of the hospital, now what they do initially, they used to do CT scan and then actually see if the CT is showing infiltrate, then they used to say this is most likely corona and actually isolate them till the RT-PCR report comes positive or negative. CT itself takes half an hour, 1 hour. It has to be seen by the CT person. Okay, you may have corona and CT may not yet show your infiltration, which actually is known. Okay, that in moderate case it may not show karke. So you are not sure about it, and it takes 1 hour, 1.5 hours. It's very costly investigation. While rapid antigen test, the advantage number one, okay, it is point of care. Actually, immediately within 50 minutes you get the report. It's not very costly. And if it is positive, it is much, much more reliable than your CT chest. Okay. So this actually is the advantage. So what now they do in the hospital when the patient becomes suspected case, they are not sure what should be done. They do your antigen test. If it is positive, this patient will be treated as a COVID-19 till it is ruled out by RT-PCR. If it is negative, usually now they don't do CT. They keep them in the observation ward, okay, do RT-PCR and then shift them to other ward. And they look for the other diseases which will come as the acute respiratory diseases. Now, serological tests are of no use. Remember, they are of no use in direct diagnosis acute cases. Because antibody usually appears after 14 days. Earliest will be 7 days. Okay. So this test actually is of no use in diagnosis of your acute COVID-19. Right. So what are they used for? Number one, for epidemiological study. Suppose now they start doing, they found out, in our Dharavi, in Mahim, almost, I don't know exact number, but large number of patients, were serologically positive. Means actually they were exposed. And almost 70 to 80% said that they had no illness. So there again, what I said, asymptomatic people were there or mild symptoms were there. Okay. So now you know that, these many people are exposed, and herd immunity is actually on that. When there are a large number of people in the population are actually having serologically positive antibodies, they are the people actually have been exposed. So there are chances that the disease will be not spreading too fast. Okay. So this is actually to see the antibody presentation does not diagnose acute diseases. What is the second thing? It tells you, okay, that patient may be probably immune. Now this is very important for the people who have got the disease and now they feel that, there is nothing to worry about because they have got the disease, they are having antibody which will protect them. Now this is actually the wrong thing. Most of the experts say, when antibody is positive, it only says that you have been exposed to the disease and you recovered from that. But it does not give you immunity passport. That is what they use, immunity passport, that you are not going to get this disease again. Because we are not yet 100% sure that it is giving immunity. We are not 100% sure that how long it will give immunity. And this will true for the one, vaccine. That's the reason say after taking vaccine also, when you develop antibody, masking and social distancing is must till we have 100% proof. So those who have got it, those are antibody positive, please don't be negligent about, getting. And of course, new thing which has happened is a variant which has come. Okay, variant of the mutant virus which has come. So yet we are not sure that the first antibody will protect against, second, your virus. Like in dengue, you have 4 times. The first virus does not produce second attack, second does not produce protect third attack. Okay, so this can be antibodies which can be protected. We pray and hope that it will be protective. But it can be variant, but it may not be protective. If you do not take care, you have all chance of getting another infection. Already there are reinfection which are being reported in various parts of the world. Now in suspected case, remember that, coronavirus or COVID-19 is not the only disease in the world. We had millions of diseases before and they are all existing with us now also. So when you have patient on the first day, please do the fever profile. Actually, many times now we are finding that malaria, of course, now the rate is declined. Actually, I'm not admitting many cases, but I talk to my colleagues and ask them what is actually happening. Okay, so they said malaria was actually too much was there actually in between. Enteric fever I have seen in my clinic, but actually I do now only outpatient, but I do admit patient, but I'm not admitting usually acute fever patient, which also is there. And of course, dengue also is there, and then your flu, influenza, also swine flu also is there. So always do the fever profile in all the patient who comes to you. XHS, there is a cough, please do it. Please do it. Okay. There are patients who can have coughs. Okay. We have started now and you will be just thinking of COVID and maybe missing it. You should do it in all the patients. Now CRP is the one investigation which is asking everyone and anyone. Now CRP is actually called acute phase reactant. It can go high in the people who are having infectious disease and any infectious disease, whether it is a malaria, whether it's typhoid. Actually, it's reflecting that there is an inflammation which is happening in the body. CRP is not infection, it is inflammation, which may be due to infection. Okay, it can be due to non-infectious disease. CRP was used most, okay, by our rheumatologist. Okay, in RA, ANA, all actually where CRP was high. Okay, it can be due to autoimmune diseases. Okay, vasculitis, it can be high. Okay, or it can be high when there is a necrosis in the body. People who are having myocardial infarction, CRP high sensitive is actually high. Okay, so don't think that CRP means actually always COVID-19, and maybe CRP high again. We all get panic, and now patients are actually more aware about CRP than I say acute fever problem. They say doctor साहब CRP करा लूँ या नहीं करा लूँ. Okay, so CRP actually is helpful. Okay, to detect the severe cases, but they are not diagnosis of COVID-19. Right? Fever profile, you should do it. X-ray, you should do it. CRP, you may ask it because patients are insisting on. Remember one thing, COVID-19 is not only viral disease which causes respiratory symptoms. We had swine flu, which is now also there. There are respiratory syncytial virus, which are now also there. There are so many viruses are there, and now there are labs which are doing viral panel. Okay, if you suspect if COVID is negative, other thing you can do viral panel. Especially swine flu actually is existing now, and many people are starting empirically swine flu medication also, which also is allowed if there is swine flu epidemic is going on. But of course, COVID-19 test actually is mandatory if you have a definite symptom highly suggestive of this particular disease. Of course, this again slide you must have seen 100 times. Just to revise it, okay. What are the laboratory manifestation of severe disease? High D dimer, more than 1000. High CRP, more than 100. Of course, 50 and 60 also can be there. But if it is this, then actually the chance of getting severe or critical disease and death is very high. High LDH, troponin twice than the normal. Okay, troponin has become now very important investigation in the patient of your COVID, because many patients are getting myocarditis or infarct. Because thromboembolic phenomena also is known, and actually inflammation of the myocardium also is known. Okay, so that also should be done. High ferritin and high CPK. So all these things actually are very high. If they are all high, they are actually saying that patients are in severe disease, and there are chance of morbidity and mortality which is very, very high. Of course, if there is a lymphocyte count is less than 800, some books says it is less than 1000, and in children even below 3000 actually they said actually is known to suggest that patients having severe diseases. So majority of patient will have lymphopenia if they are having severe COVID disease. Okay, less than 1000 for the adult and less than 3000 in the children. They have high chance of thromboembolic complications, and that's the reason this is very important to know, and that's the reason you have to give chemoprophylaxis against the thromboembolic phenomena. Okay. Now plus, none of the organ in the body is immune to get involved with your COVID disease. Let it be cardiac disease, cardiac, heart, it can be kidney, it can be liver, it can be neurology, okay, central peripheral nervous system. Everything can get involved. It can cause rhabdomyolysis, it can cause coagulopathy, and of course, shock also is known to happen with this. So these are all the complications of COVID disease in a severe and critical case. Fortunately, they are only in about 14% of the cases which are known to have 19% of cases. 81% fortunately will survive without any problem. Now we come to the final part of this particular lecture. What is the treatment, okay, of COVID? It depends upon the stage of the disease and severity of the disease. Okay. Now remember, the replication of the virus actually is maximum just before or soon after the symptom. Okay. This is the one thing which you should remember, and that's the reason antiviral treatment, okay, whether it is remdesivir or antibody, will be helpful in initial stage. Okay, they are most effective in initial stage when there is replication in maximum. Usually after 7, 8, 9 days, in majority cases, replication is actually very low, or it may not be there. Now that time, if you give all these things, you are just wasting your effort. So later in the disease, actually after 5 days or 7 days in majority cases, there is something called hyperinflammatory state, and coagulopathy sets in. It's also called cytokine storm. Okay, now this is the time this may not be effective. You may be wasting your drug and wasting your money. Here the difference, actually the treatment will be focusing more on the anti-inflammatory medication, immunomodulator and anticoagulants. Okay. Sometimes you may have to do antiviral plus all these things together. but actually depend upon which part, what time patient has come karke. But remember, you should know when to start antiviral, you should know when to start anti-inflammatory drugs, okay, and when to start both together. So now a person, which was the first case, who has come to you, who had a mild illness, 2 days history, otherwise comfortable, not acutely ill, okay, what I should do about him karke. But he has lots of risk factors. He is an elderly person, he is having hypertension, he is having COPD, okay. So what should I do it? Okay. So today also, most of the people all over the world, they said people who are actually mildly symptomatic, mild illness is there, okay, they should be treated without additional antiviral therapy. Okay, this is the guidelines today also, right? Right? But all of us are worried, and then we do start some treatment. But then if I have to start treatment, what will be ideal treatment actually which I can start, which is having some scientific base to start in these cases. And of course, in initial stage actually, as I said, if you start the treatment, viral load is very high. There are chances that you'll be able to prevent moderate or severe or critical disease. Once again, I'm asking, am I too fast, Ayub, or I'm clear?
You are clear, sir.
Okay, because without seeing the faces, it's very difficult to talk. But anyway, I'm learning it. So, what is the role of HCQS, ivermectin, and favipiravir, which actually were used by, and even chloroquine was used by some of them, which was very much used by all my colleagues. I was not treating this, so I would not have any comment on it. But what I am talking is actually what are international guidelines. HCQS have been given up both in acute cases, mild, moderate, or severe. More and more trials have come which has not shown actually much benefit. At the same time, there are lots of side effects which are known to occur with it, which will be coming in next slide. Okay, ivermectin was the next drug, okay, which was actually given by many people. Now some people are giving. It is definitely having antiviral effect. HCQS was an antiviral effect, but it is not good effect to cure the patient. Okay, ivermectin also is having effect, but it's not good enough. And if you want to give the proper dose, which is having good effect, you have to have a very high actually threshold or high level of this in the blood, ivermectin. If you have to give that, it is known to cause severe neurotoxicity. So ivermectin also now they say no, it should not be given. Favipiravir is the one drug. I think it is antiviral. Okay, if you write it, I think there is nothing wrong. Maybe that if I have to treat some patient in future, if I treat the patient, then probably I will give this drug. Okay. Most important advantage is actually oral antiviral drug. Okay, and actually it has been it was first used in Japan and now mainly it's used in Japan, and whatever it's usually used in these countries, usually your Americans and Europeans, they don't accept them very easily. Okay, so there are not many paper on this in most of the literature which has come from the American and Europe, but it was used as an influenza swine flu drug. It was used in Japan, but they found that it is effective also in this particular COVID-19, and Russia has actually now recommended it as the treatment for COVID-19. So you have at least something to say that this drug I can use it. Now the dose is actually 18 mg BD, okay, on the first day, and then actually 8 mg BD for 6 days. Recommendation by the international committee is actually 1600 BD, okay, for the first day and 600 BD for the 6 days. I've seen this prescription in all my colleagues who are treating it. I myself not prescribe anyone this case. But if I have to use, rather than HCQS, ivermectin, I would use favipiravir. At least there is some evidence that it is good, it is antiviral, and of course one country, which is again, having lots of good scientific basis, has recognized it. Today, in the Western world, they said, if you want to use any drug in a patient who is not asymptomatic, those are having mild or moderate, you should use monoclonal antibody and convalescent plasma. Because they have shown that, there is definitely viral load actually goes down. Now, monoclonal antibody was used probably in our friend Trump, okay. So he won against COVID and he unfortunately lost against Biden, okay. So monoclonal antibody, but it is very important that it has to be used as early as possible. and never after 10 days. Because as I said, once the virus actually after 7 and 8 days multiplication goes down, if you use that time, it may not have used. And convalescent plasma, which is also recommended, okay, again it usually has gone down, okay. In India also people had used, especially in Delhi, it was used in many of the politicians and VIPs, okay. It has to be used within 72 hours of the symptoms. After that, it may not have much value, right? Where actually they collect the serum of the people who have high antibody because they have suffered from the disease and it's given to it. So very important, it has to be used within 72 hours, okay. Here, actually, never beyond 10 days. Of course, as early as possible because the maximum, as I said, replications are actually in initial stage of the disease control. So monoclonal antibody and this cross are actually given for the mild and moderate. It can be given on the OPD basis according to them. Of course, in India, no one is using it. They have started as a trial there. Okay. Convalescent actually is not actually given on OPD basis as far as I know, but monoclonal they give it. Okay. There are various which are there. Okay. I don't have much idea. Neither there are and then use and how to use and where to use. But you have to know as a physician that these are the things which are coming up, probably may be useful in future. Now, if there is a clinical evidence of bacterial pneumonia in X-ray, you can start empirically antibacterial. But remember one thing, most of the people who are in COVID-19, they do not have bacterial infection initially. Most of them are not. So most of the time, we start, mostly I've seen cefixime in the patient on the first and second day when they come. It has no role at all. Suppose someone has started and if you have proved that there is no bacterial infection even in the ward, okay, in the hospital, one can stop, antibacterial agent because COVID is not known to have in initial stage associated bacterial pneumonia like it is happening in the swine flu. Okay, in influenza in initial stage also you can have bacterial pneumonia. In fact, many people die not of swine flu because secondary bacterial pneumonia. But later on, you can get nosocomial infection once the patient is admitted. That time definitely should be used. You should have clinical, radiological, and pathological evidence to continue antibacterial agent. Otherwise, don't waste the medicine. Okay, don't waste the medicine. Now, this again, whether to use, your Tamiflu in the patient who are suspected. Yeah, here actually they said when the country which are having endemic, this flu, swine flu, okay, the seasonal swine flu which is actually known to happen here, many people and actually many people of my colleagues were rightly using, with COVID also they were giving this Tamiflu. So that can be probably used depending upon the condition and what is the epidemiology which is going in the city in that particular area. So that was about the mild disease. Okay. Now my patient who was first case which I discussed, 2 days history, was mild but very, very high risk is there. So in that case actually I will treat him as a high risk case or moderate disease and I will monitor him very, very closely. And if necessary, I may have to even hospitalize him. Okay. So there is something called, you can't go and see patient every day because you yourself is worried. Okay. And patient cannot come to your clinic because you are worried and there are other people who are actually exposed. You should not tell them to come to OPD every day. Okay. Because, when they are traveling, when they are going out, they are high risk to infect other people. So there is something called the patient self-assessment tool. I'm sure you must have heard about it, where you start educating patient, preferably on the video or on the telephone. Don't sit and go on talking for hours together, right? In that, they should be told something about, problem in the cough and the breathing. Okay. If they find that, their breathing is becoming worse, breathing can start on the second day also, but that is mild. It does not disturb their day-to-day activity. So they have divided breathing in mild, moderate and severe. And that you should teach your patient or their relative. Mild actually is carrying out all his activity happily at home without any problem, right? Moderate actually now he is finding that when he is going to the toilet, okay, or when actually exert too much, he is feeling more breathless. The severe, when actually he cannot move out of his bed, of course by that time actually he will land in the hospital, right? Okay, or throughout night he is coughing and not able to sleep, okay, or he actually when talking he cannot complete his sentences. So this was a thing which was taught to us in second MBBS in patient of status asthmaticus or severe COPD. They used to tell us, okay, as a student, ask for the full address. You can speak full address in one breath. This patient does not require hospitalization. Okay, just give him treatment and send him home in the casualty. Second thing, ask him to the full address, but he is actually saying 1122 sentence and he is stopping. This is the one who requires observation in the casualty. Give him nebulization. At that time we used to use IV aminophylline. Give him that. Give him steroid. See, now he is able to talk after 1 hour properly. Send him home. The one who speaks sentences in the words, after a word, 2 words, he stops. Okay, no complete sentence. This is a person who is bad. He should be admitted in the ward and definitely ICU. So same thing actually is to be applied. It should be taught to the patient. I had one patient just now, very recently, in my clinic. 2 days, 1 day prior they phone with the patient बहुत सीरियस है, बहुत सीरियस। बोला भाई क्या होता है? बोला कुछ नहीं है सर, तो अच्छा है, खाली बस बात नहीं कर रहे बराबर, ठीक है ना। तो I said ओके, तुम लेके आओ मेरे पास, मैं देखता हूँ। मैं बोला भाई फीवर तो नहीं था? बोले फीवर भी नहीं था, थोड़ा खांसी आता है, थोड़ा सा सांस है करके। And he came in my clinic. He was acutely breathless. Actually, I'm talking in Saipu Hospital about 4-5 days back. He was acutely breathless. Okay, he was about 75 old man. Then they said told me that he was 8-10 दिन से तो ऐसा चला हुआ है करके, बुखार 8 दिन के पहले आया था. Okay, and they came out with that. They told me that COVID उसका negative है करके, समझे ना? They showed me the report also 10 days back which was done करके. This patient actually had all the feature of severe respiratory failure. Breathing was very bad. Saturation was about 85-87, okay, which they never told me on the phone. Okay, I said they required immediate transfer to the casualty and from there to the hospital. So they admitted, बोले हमको COVID नहीं डॉक्टर साहब। मैं बोला actually if it is COVID, I will not admit under my care, okay, because I don't see this patient regularly. So we went in the casualty of Saifu Hospital. Doctor phone me saying is actually saturation 85. I am admitting immediately in the isolation ward, and then slowly we may shift. Otherwise, he was conscious, okay, but breathing was bad, okay. He did CT and it showed that there was a typical coronavirus pattern was there. Okay. Now, this is the patient, the first test has probably missed the coronavirus because of the technology, or probably it was too early which was done, probably, okay. So, I told this patient relative, now you require this test and we will treat him with the coronavirus. Okay, after 1 hour, I got a call that they want to go AMA, okay. And he went AMA. He was being treated at the home. They said we are giving him oxygen at home also, right? So I discharged this patient. So it's very important. See the severity of the disease, okay, and the stage of disease. So first case actually will require proper management at the home. And of course, now again one thing which everyone has learned, and we talk about home oxygen monitoring, okay, oximetry, right? So tell patient to see his oxygen frequently if it is a moderate case, okay, especially if you become breathless. If he is not breathless, don't tell him to see again and again. And 100 people should not see in the home who comes to see and visit him, okay. In fact, no one should visit that person, okay. And if it is going below 94 or if his breathing rate is increasing, he should be immediately admitted to hospital. All severe diseases should be admitted to hospital. So now, once they come to the hospital, the scenario has changed. Now is the patient who is having very bad problem as far as actually the most common or the most important organ which gets affected by your coronavirus is actually your lung. And the lung actually is the one which is a supply for the life, and that is oxygen. Okay. So hypoxia is the one thing which causes, death and failure of all the organs, because none of the organs can survive, without oxygen, right? So once the patient is having actually hypoxia, okay, whatever their level is, whatever the breathing problem is there, okay, you have various ways by which you can give oxygen. Simple nasal catheter, mass flow, high flow nasal oxygen therapy, non-invasive ventilation, and invasive mechanical ventilation. Okay. So if there is a oxygen saturation should be kept between 90 to 96%, preferably above 94%. Okay, if you can manage with the 1 liter, don't give 2 liters. If it is not 2 liter, 4 liter, and otherwise he can require even high actually supplement of the oxygen with your high nasal flow oxygen. Okay, that actually is very important. Now, what is important whether to intubate or not to intubate? Is actually most important part, because intubation, if you do prematurely, okay, you have a problem of intubation itself. Once the tube is inside, there are many problems which can happen because of intubation. Nosocomial infection can happen, damage to the lung can happen, okay, many things can happen. So you have to choose right time. It's very difficult to choose the right time. And second thing, suddenly if patient requires intubation, and always emergency intubation is its own problem. Okay, so there's a chaotic emergency. People are not in PPE or PPE. Okay, and then the chance of exposure of getting disease to the healthcare worker is very high. So of course, intubation choice will be depending upon the intensivist who is actually at that spot. I and you cannot tell on the phone when it will be required. Okay, indication of intubation. Of course, when the breathing is becoming now very bad. Okay, and patient is not able to breathe properly. Hypoxemia is refractory to oxygen supplementation. Of course, there is one more important thing actually at home also. If patient has an altered sensorium, okay, patient has become drowsy, patient is responding as well as he was responding before. Even at home, with saturation which is 94, please bring him to the hospital. Same thing in the moderate cases. If the urine output is now started decreasing, he is not taking enough. Okay, he should be also admitted in the hospital. Those actually things which I should have highlighted in my moderate cases, but I just forgot. I had not put in the points. Okay. So altered sensorium, diminished sensorium are all the sign that oxygen is now going. See, actually perfusion in any organ goes down, oxygen, the organs start failing. Okay, initially it will be dysfunction and then the failure. If there is a low oxygen in the brain, altered sensorium occurs. Low oxygen in the heart, infarct can happen. Lung, of course, which very low oxygen happening, kidney also will fail and liver also will fail. So if there is encephalopathy, hypoxemia, refractory to oxygen supplement, all these patients should be immediately intubated. Of course, as I said, high flow nasal cannula for the person who is not to be ventilated, and yet he requires actually your oxygen. You can go and try to correct with it. Okay. Now, what is the use of BiPAP and CPAP? Now, there are many people who are obese and they get this disease and they are using CPAP at night. You can use CPAP, but when you are using CPAP, then patient should be isolated. Okay, anything which actually involves, aerosol generations, okay, or dispersion of aerosol are the ones which are very risky for the people who are around them, either patient or the healthcare worker. When you are nebulizing, when you are intubating, okay, or when you are putting the patient on, this BiPAP or CPAP, okay, you should see that, they are isolated. So CPAP, of course, you can use it if patient is in isolated ward. BiPAP are to be used in the people who are using it for chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or cardiogenic pulmonary edema. But those who are with ARDS, they will be probably not helped by this, your BiPAP. They should be immediately on your intubation and ventilator. A person who is awake and his oxygenation is just borderline manner, they found at prone position. When you give, it improves the oxygen level. Okay, and this is true also for the people who are on ventilator. So prone position, actually, you should encourage patients, even at home, who are mild to moderate, that they should sleep on the prone position. It will help. Now, this is the slide. It's an excellent slide of a person who is in severe COVID disease and or critical COVID disease, how to manage them. This is a patient. These are probably indication. Okay, how you will manage the PEEP, how you will manage the tidal volume. Okay, what saturation you will keep. All is described in this slide, which I am not going to talk about it. But this is a slide which is freely available in NEGM, New England Journal of Medicine. You go in NEGM, type coronavirus. All things which are on coronavirus are free of charge. Those who are intensivists, they must be knowing about it. But to revise your knowledge, this one slide, if you keep in front of you, it becomes easier for you to know what to do, when to do, and how to do it. Of course, you are all experts, but always better to revise it and remember new things which are actually happening with this concept. So I'm not going to talk about ventilator maintenance because I again not any time that ventilator management. What I tell, when there was no COVID, but there were ARDS, there were COPDs, there were status asthmaticus, I used to tell my resident intensivist, okay, they were BMS, they were LCH, but they have learned so well. Okay, and they were MBBS also, of course. Okay, like Dr. Farida is there, she is MBBS, but there are other people who are under her. They have been taught so well by, in the past, Dr. Kedar, now Dr. Aziz, okay, Dr. Sampath, Dr. Aziz. I used to tell them that I want this much oxygen, I want this much CO2, okay, and you manipulate this ventilator and give me this. Because if I start manipulating, I will cause problem because these numbers I do not know. Karke. And they used to give us a great and good results. Karke. So this actually is a technical thing. Let it be managed by the people who are doing. But there are few things as a family physician you should know. Why ventilator is so dangerous? Okay, because you have to use ventilator management, lung protective ventilation. What are the definitions? That you should not induce lung injuries. If you have lots of PEEP, it causes over disease of your alveoli and it destroys. And once it is destroyed, it is gone forever. If you give too much oxygen, hyperoxia, it again causes toxicity to the all part of the body. Okay. At the same time, if you do not give enough PEEP, there is a collapse of the alveoli and there is a ventilation perfusion mismatch. All these things I will not discuss. It will be too much for us and there is no time also. So this has to be kept in mind by a resident who is now recently gone to the ICU and going to be learned as an intensivist. Ventilation should be given, ventilator should be given with a lung protective ventilator. And that actually in the previous slide is described everything in a very short thing. If there is a refractory hypoxemia with ventilator also, which is described as a PO2 FiO2 less than 150. Again, this will be known by the people who are working in ICU. As a general physician, you may not know about it. The latest thing, again, you should give prone position to this patient also, on ventilator also, which I just told you. The latest thing which has come is ECMO, extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, very costly affair, given to the patient who cannot be managed on ventilator. Okay, morbidity and mortality is very high. I don't know exactly cause. Farida, you are there, or anyone from ICU, or Jayan, what is the cause of ECMO? Jayan, you
Hello.
are there in ICU.
Yes, sir. Yeah. It goes into the legs, sir.
Okay. So don't make people bankrupt. Always I used to say that whenever you see the patient, see the two things. One is the pulse when there is an acute emergency, and second is the pulse. Okay. If you feel these are the patients who are very bad, please send them to government hospital. They are as good as any one of us. Okay. X of rupees. Okay. Now, which are the therapy which has been now at least confirmed of the today, which are to be used in the patient of your COVID disease. The one thing which actually has now come, which was no before few months, that you should not give steroid to the patient of COVID, right? Now they have found that this is actually the savior for the people who are having moderate to severe COVID and even people on the ventilator, right? Right? So, but it is for the people who are requiring oxygen supplementation, okay, in them. Shall we give on the first and second day? Again, there are paper which they said that you should not give on the first, second, third day. And there is not too much of inflammation, only viral actually replication is there. And there are chance when you give on the first, second, and third day, there are chance that multiplication of viral will become much more, and patient will have bad outcomes. Of course, the guidelines are changing every day, but today it is actually for the people who are requiring oxygen supplement should be given this. Don't give everyone. Dose is very fixed for dexamethasone, for hydrocortisone and methylprednisolone. You should read and give it. They recommend for the 10 days. After 5 days, actually, they said patient is okay, you may even discharge and send him home also and do it. Karke. But remember, it should not be given the first and second day. It is what I know, karke, what a paper I have read. Karke. Now, remdesivir is again another definite antiviral drug. Is given preferences over all the antiviral drugs which are up till now used. Okay, but it is shown to reduce the clinical recovery, time to clinical recovery. Again, 2 months back when I was reading paper, it was said that it should be given to the people who are having saturation less than 94. Okay, and those who are intubated should not be given because that is too late and not going to, because already the viral load actually is not much there. But today, yesterday when I was reading the latest thing which has come, okay, so actually what was there actually, it was benefit to be greatest if the patient was taking supplemental oxygen and were not intubated. in intubator also they should say it may not have all over because it's now too late. Viral multiplication not there because this is going to reduce the replication of the virus. There are not much replication which is happening that way. So here actually the stage which is inflammatory, but that actually was there karke, to be given to the people who are in supplemental oxygen but not intubated. But today actually, which I read, all hospitalized patients who are having moderate disease, okay, regardless of oxygen saturation, you should give the remdesivir. Okay, this is today actually what I have read. Maybe in tomorrow may something change also. Randomized trial did not show a reduction in hospital mortality with the user. This actually has come from the company itself. Okay, I think LIDA is a company which is there. Mortality doesn't go, but definitely the clinical recovery is there. But now actually, let's see with moderate cases how it actually helps. Tocilizumab, the most soft drug or the most drug which was actually asked for all over the India and probably in the world was tocilizumab. The people who are in cytokine storm or query cytokine storm, and the cost was actually so high and also sold in your blackmail. Okay, black market it was actually being sold karke. Today actually it has gone down. Okay, there are very few cases where actually it's supposed to be given. It will be decided by the intensivist, like a physician who is treating that disease. But it is now not used as much as it was used, few months back. Actually, there are many of my colleagues who had kept 2 to 3D. I one of the very VIP politician also said, I have kept talking if anything is required, doctor just tell me, I'll be able to give it karke. Okay, hoarding was there karke. But now actually it is not actually very commonly used. There are indications, but not as common as it was thought in past. Now, what are the other medicine patients using? Can we stop or not? Karke? Now, actually, we know that hypertension is one of the common diseases in the world. Okay, and same is in India. And actually, I showed in the first slide, S2 receptors are the one which actually on which your virus spike protein, that protein which are the crown which is there, a spike that is called spike. Okay, kata. That spike protein actually adherence. Okay, adherence to or actually it sticks, to your S2 receptor, S2 receptor on the mucosa, and then it enters and then actually it causes the infection. So when you are giving ACE inhibitor or ARBs, is it contraindicated? Will it actually increase the adhesions and cause severe disease? Now it has been found that it is not right. So you can continue ACE inhibitor and ARBs in the patient who are having COVID disease beginning. Actually all patients should not stop because you are likely to get COVID. Stop it. No, it should not be a stop cut. Okay, so you can give ACE inhibitor and ARBs. Okay, now NSAID in initial papers are there, that in NSAID should be not given because it's supposed to worsen your COVID disease. Now there are papers which say that it doesn't cause any harmful effect, but they said avoid NSAID as far as possible. Preferably you should give simple paracetamol. Now this is a summary of what we are using and how actually you are actually convinced about it. That the president of America from the state said that these are the drugs are the game changer. We are going to change the complete coronavirus outcome. Okay, and today they are not being used. Number one actually was hydrochloroquine. Can you see this slide properly?
Hello.
Can you see
Hello.
this slide?
नहीं sir, वो दिखता नहीं है. वो very difficult. It's a very small this thing.
Okay, fine. I cannot enlarge both, but one first drug was actually hydroxychloroquine, which was actually came in the market and sold in lakhs. Okay, but now it has been said that it is of no use. Then other drug which was lopinavir ritonavir, antiretroviral drug, anti-HIV drug. Again, it has gone out. No one is using it. Remdesivir today actually I discussed is being used. Antibodies. The first which came was convalescent plasma, as I said, to be used within 72 hours. Again, there are many papers which have come out that it may not be much useful. Monoclonal antibody are in now work to be started in early stage. Okay, can be done on an OPD basis, but is under research. It's not available in India only. And there are multiple monoclonal antibody which are available in the market. Okay, are under research project, not to be used now. So what was supposed to be the drug are not actually to be used now. At least this slide, can you see very clearly? Because it's one of the best slide which I got, from Anygem. Can you see this? Not Anygem, it is from Medscape.
No sir, this is also very small slide. This thing letters.
Okay. So anyway, It describes what you should do in asymptomatic patient, mild illness, moderate illness, severe illness, and critical illness. Okay. If patient is asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic, okay, you should do testing of this case. Every patient where you suspect, if possible, please do the testing. Because actually the people who are pre-symptomatic and asymptomatic are the actually super spreaders. Okay. So you should do tests, and if they are positive, they should be isolated. Mild illness, again, you should do the test and isolate them. Moderate illness, isolation plus observation. Severe illness, of course, isolation plus admission. In critical illness, isolation plus admission. That is the first thing. But that is a very good thing which they have shown, that initial stage, this is actually a bluish hexagonal thing is there. Initial stage, there is a multiple viral replication is there. It's from New England Journal only. Viral replication is there. And after about 6 and 7 days, viral replication goes down. Okay. And after 6 and 7 days, inflammation begins. Okay. In the severe cases, in critical cases, inflammation is much more. So it is now said here that antiviral drugs are effective in first 7 to 8 days, while anti-inflammatory drugs are actually important in the later phase after 7 days. Antibodies are also useful in first 7 days. Okay, so this is a good slide. This is in New England Journal. You go type coronavirus and you will see this slide. This one slide actually, if you keep on your desk as a family physician, this will tell you what to do. Pre-symptomatic case, asymptomatic case, mild illness. In single slide, everything is actually being said. Okay, so I think it's time to say bye bye. Any questions
Hello,
are
sir.
there, please? Any questions
Hello,
are
sir.
there?
Thank you. Excellent talk. Excellent
Hello,
talk.
sir.
Thank you.
I know that this is a repetition. Thank you, sir. Salam, that you are insisting, because it has revised my knowledge. Whether you have gained something you or not, but I have revised my knowledge. If someone is saying hello, sir, please tell me.
Hello, sir. Can you tell few words about vaccines? Please, sir.
I heard multiple slides on vaccine, but
Forget about slide. Say your own opinion.
I'll tell you. I'll just 3 lines only. I'll tell you. So actually, I prepared that vaccine. Now, vaccine actually is very, very controversial thing to take or not to take. Okay, and there are many colleagues of mine were telling me that whether we should take vaccine or not to take vaccine.
Which to take, sir? Which vaccine to take?
So there are, there are platforms they say. One is actually mRNA vaccine, which are from the Pfizer, and the second actually, which is from your Moderna, which are actually available in the American countries and which is available in your European countries, which are not available here, so no use of talking. But it is supposed to give 95% protection. That is actually, they say that protection with the antibodies formed. As I said, antibodies actually exposure. Protection will happen or not, we'll know in next few months or 6 months. Okay. So actually, I have been told by some of my colleagues who are having relatives and the doctors there. All doctors are taking there. Okay. I'm not giving my biased opinion. All doctors are taking this. One of my patients just now who went to America, she's also a doctor. She's my student also. He actually messaged me that, her parents, everyone is there. Sir, what should I do? Shall we take a vaccine or not? I said, what about your colleague? They said, most of our colleagues are taking. I said, you take it. You take it. Now in India, there are 2 vaccines which are available. Okay. One is from AstraZeneca and one actually is prepared in our, I think, Bharat Serum Laboratory is there. They are there. Okay. AstraZeneca is also used in the Europe countries. It is actually UK, it is being used. Okay. And they are actually not mRNA based vaccine. They are actually vector based vaccine or attenuated vaccine. Not actually is a long thing in vaccine which will not go in detail about it. Now, up till now, I used to tell my all colleagues that, I have not taken. I am not sure whether I'll take it or not. But now, actually, after discussing with my colleagues, okay, and some of the people who are actually very active in this, I have decided to take. Inshallah, I will be taking. I will be taking, one which is actually available in the municipality, not in the government. We will not name all those things again. Okay, these are all, controversial topic. So I am probably inshallah going to take it. those who are actually having now chance, we should take it. And actually, vaccine is actually important to take because now the safety actually, whatever I heard in last 1 month, I'm getting so many of my colleagues who are senior or my age and who are actually junior. They all taken. So I have decided to take it. Okay, Mukesh. So this is actually my view on the vaccine. Do you have any other question, Mukesh? Nice to hear
Okay,
your
sir.
voice.
Thank you, sir.
Okay?
Thank you.
Stop here. Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.